Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a brand new romantic manhwa recap. I want to be fooled. So get comfy, relax, and let's escape into another emotional, twist-filled love story together. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and means so much to me. Now, let's get started. Speaking emotionally to someone on the phone, he reminded her that he never said he wanted to date her. When the guy spoke so boldly and without a hint of respect, something suddenly crashed loudly onto the floor. Shocked, the girl dropped a metal can of soda, which spilled in front of her. It was immediately clear that this conversation wouldn't end well. This story began a few weeks earlier, when Do Sujeong agreed to go on a group blind date. At the bookstore, Do Sujeong noticed an interesting book about cruises, and it seemed she wasn't the only one. A guy standing next to her was also interested in the same book, but he was interrupted by a random girl who asked if he could give her his phone number. Do Sujeong was amazed by the girl's boldness. She had the courage to walk up to a handsome guy and ask to get to know him first. The girl told him he was really attractive and that she couldn't take her eyes off him the moment she saw him. When the guy wrote down his number for her, she promised she would definitely text him. The guy knew he was very good-looking and was used to girls often trying to get to know him. Then another girl approached him and asked if he was already seeing someone, because she also wanted his number. Do Sujeong couldn't believe it. Was there really another girl trying to hit on him? The girls were happy that he didn't turn them down and gave each of them his number. But the real question was, why was he doing it? It seemed he was handing out his number to every girl he met. Did he want to build friendly connections? Or was he just bragging about his popularity? But later it turned out the phone number he gave was fake. It wasn't even registered. Sujeong's friend called to remind her not to forget about tonight's group date. Her friend promised to cover for her, so of course she would come. And if Sujeong liked someone, she shouldn't hesitate to make a move. Sujeong liked the idea of becoming rich and doing nothing, far more than going on dates. She'd travel around the world on her own cruise ship and forget about everyone. These dates only disgusted her. It was clear everyone went there for one reason. But her friend didn't consider herself some naive fool. She knew exactly what she was getting into. And Sujeong needed to understand that it was simply romance. Or maybe it could be called love. The kind that appears out of nowhere and pulls you into strange feelings and impressions. Love finds people precisely when they least expect it. Random encounters can actually be useful when you don't prepare for them and expect nothing at all. At the prestigious Yonsei University, located right by the sea, studied Do Sujeong, a girl who had deliberately refused any kind of romantic relationship with men. But calling her shy or unable to speak would be wrong. When her friend invited her to grab drinks with guys from their department, Sujeong declined. Most likely, she was the type who didn't care about others or what they thought of her. When her friend said Senior Ji-hoon liked a girl, Sujeong didn't react. She just wanted to go home before she missed the last train. Sometimes people said she was like a robot. But that didn't mean she had no problems interacting with others. She resembled an introverted cat who preferred solitude over loud groups. Yoo Hyeri was her only friend and often wondered how such a loner would ever find love. Sujeong didn't understand what love or attachment even meant, like a robot that would rather have its joints oiled than experience feelings. Because of this, Hyeri felt a little guilty for dragging her friend into such a situation. But she still hoped everything would go smoothly. Even though Sujeong didn't like it, she tried to keep up the conversation and pretend she was enjoying the meeting. Though she wasn't the life of the party, one guy gathered the courage to ask how she usually spent her free time. She answered that she writes. To be fair, she really did try. But secretly, she just wanted to go home. The answer was exactly what one would expect from a literature lover. But Sujeong also sometimes watched movies, did chores, and if she had a little extra time, she went for walks to the library. She preferred doing everything alone instead of fumbling under people's judgmental looks. The guy assumed she simply liked spending time alone, though maybe it sounded rude coming from him. Her face showed zero emotion, but she replied that he was wrong. She loved hanging out in big groups. Everyone knew she was lying, but she thought it sounded believable. Her friend said they were expecting one more guy, and he just texted that he was on his way. A few minutes later, the last guy arrived, as promised. He apologized for being late and explained that he had been delayed by some things. Sujeong immediately recognized him. The guy from the bookstore who handed out his phone number to every girl. And she wasn't mistaken. He really was the same playboy all the girls stuck to like flies to honey. He was in a great mood and, looking at the group, pointed out that they all seemed to be about the same age. So they decided to skip all formalities and quickly catch him up on what they were talking about. Sujeong was surprised how effortlessly her friend got along with guys. Her friend explained that they were talking about how Sujeong liked spending time alone. But then Sujeong tried to convince them she also loved hanging out with people. Though no one believed her, the guy laughed. He found it amusing, and he liked her reactions when they talked about her. Sujeong wasn't used to hearing things like that about herself, or how easily they threw around these flattering comments. But what else could she expect? People came to these dates exactly for awkward and uncomfortable conversations. Still, she couldn't get used to these cheap, cliché tricks. When one of the guys suggested playing another drinking game, he seemed out of ideas on how to drag everyone into yet another inappropriate drinking round. Sujeong noticed another guy touching her friend's hair, asking what shampoo she used because it smelled so nice. She thought he was overacting, trying too hard to make her heart race. She felt everything would be much better if everyone acted a little more naturally. She looked at the guy who had arrived late and wished they all behaved more like him. When she looked at him, he also looked back, and their eyes met. They planned to start another drinking game in 10 minutes. Sujeong wondered if they hadn't played enough in childhood to be dragging this into adulthood. Watching all this chaos, she had only one thought. She really missed her soft, cozy bed. One of the guys turned to Sujeong and asked if she wanted to go out with him to get some ice cream. The girl agreed without hesitation. She felt really lonely in that group and just wanted to go for a walk. Suddenly, the handsome guy placed an ice cream on her hand. Was he trying to offer her a treat? It was unexpected. When the girl agreed to leave, he suggested she stay. His friend wasn't happy with the handsome guy's move. It felt like a dirty trick. The guy joked that if she left, everyone would be sad because she was the life of the party. And if she wanted ice cream, well, here it was, though slightly melted. Did these handsome guys really do stuff like this often? He explained that the owner had given him that ice cream earlier, but for Sujeong, it was enough of a reason to leave the bar and quietly sneak home. Did he really think she wouldn't see through such a primitive trick? She was already getting cold, and honestly, she wanted to go home because she was terrible at drinking games. She kept losing, and every time she lost, she had to drink a lot of alcohol. Sometimes the guys helped her and drank for her, but even that didn't save her. She'd already had way too much. Now everyone suggested switching seats for the next round. Sujeong didn't want anything anymore. She slammed her glass on the table and said she wasn't playing. She couldn't drink another drop. She had really had too many different drinks, and she felt like she might not even make it home. They had never seen anyone lose so many times in a row. Everyone was heading out to get ice cream and invited her to come along. Maybe get some fresh air. The guys went outside to smoke, but Sujeong couldn't walk anymore. She wanted to sit while they went. They promised to come right back and continue the game, and she wasn't allowed to run away, even though she wanted to. It was a good idea. Once everyone left, Sujeong could finally slip out unnoticed. But when she lifted her head, she saw the handsome guy sitting right next to her, scrolling through his phone. She wondered why he always blocked her path whenever she tried to leave. She asked him if he wasn't going to smoke. His timing was suspicious. Without looking up from his phone, he said he wasn't a fan of smoking. Cigarettes didn't have anything good in them anyway. Honestly, cigarettes tasted disgusting to him, and he didn't get why people liked them. But Sujeong wasn't interested in his reasons. He was quite talkative and kept things into her ear. He found it funny that she was so drunk now. Just a moment ago, she'd been cold and distant, and now she was chatting first. She didn't understand. Had something really changed? In the beginning, she was completely different. But once she lost, she had no choice but to drink, even though she knew nothing good would come from it. He laughed. Couldn't she hear that she was talking through her nose now? He was definitely going to tease her about it tomorrow. She didn't want that. He didn't even know her. The handsome guy was confused. What did she mean he didn't know her? Her name was Do Sujeong, and of course he knew it. He had a great memory, and whenever he needed to, he remembered things perfectly. Was that really true? Did he really remember everything? She was sure guys like him didn't bother learning girls' names. He thought she misunderstood him, and she didn't even know his name. He wondered what she meant by guys like him. Was he really so different from the guys she usually knew? Unlike her, he wasn't that serious. When she asked about his hobbies, he said he liked water sports. His answer surprised her. When he showed her photos on his phone, she thought he looked like a sea lion. That alone showed how different they were. All his activities weren't her thing. Couldn't he tell she didn't want to know anything else about him? But he wanted her to ask something more. Maybe they had something in common. He noticed that when she was drunk, she was completely real and talked a lot. When she asked what he liked, he immediately answered, anything that could make him laugh. He liked trying new things or talking to strangers. It kept life interesting. There was always something new to learn. He appreciated beauty in everything. Anything cute or pleasant to look at drew his attention. He showed her a picture of his best friend, his dog. The pup was truly adorable. Distracted by him, she realized she felt a bit better, but she really needed to use the bathroom. When she got up, the handsome guy tried to follow her. She told him she was going to the restroom. Why was he following? He said he was worried she might fall on the way. As she walked toward the exit, he asked if the restroom was really outside. He figured out she was planning to run home. Sujeong's inner robot system malfunctioned. She had no idea what to say. When she tried to pass, he stretched out his leg to block her way. Why was he doing this? Why wouldn't he let her leave? What was his goal? Even though he blocked her, she was already thinking how to get around him. She was determined to escape. She unexpectedly shoved him aside, slipped past, and ran. He didn't expect it, so he couldn't react in time. When her friends returned, they asked where she went. Did she run away again like last time? But she hadn't gotten far. She was hiding right behind him. He pretended not to notice her hiding behind his back and told the girls he had no idea where she'd gone. Then he whispered for her to hide behind the building. He would distract her friends and join her later. When the girls got busy with something, he said he needed to take a call and stepped away, promising to return quickly. She could hear the girls wondering if Sujeong had really left and gone home alone. He didn't know what to do. Should he protect her secret? But he saw no point. She was running away from him. Sujeong didn't want him to tell her friends she was nearby, but she knew he'd want something in return. When he stood very close to her, she was sure he'd smell like alcohol and heavy cologne. But when he leaned in, she only smelled shampoo. He smiled and said she owed him something. From the very beginning, she knew that everything had gone wrong tonight, especially when she found herself next to Cha Seunghyeon. He handed her his phone and asked her to give him her account. Her friends were scrambling, unable to believe Sujeong had actually gone home without even saying goodbye. She had just a few seconds to decide and agree to the guy's terms. Otherwise, he might not keep her secret. He expected Sujeong to give him her account, and in return, he wouldn't tell her friends she had actually been nearby the whole time. But there was one problem. Sujeong wasn't registered on any social media at all, and she had basically said no to online communication. The guy was shocked. Every young person these days was glued to the internet, and he'd never met anyone who didn't chat online. As an alternative, he suggested exchanging phone numbers. But Sujeong didn't get why that was necessary. To him, it just made sense. They needed at least some way to contact each other. He was just curious about her. But if she didn't want to, that was fine too. Sujeong figured that on group dates it was normal to casually exchange numbers. He wanted to ask her something else, but decided it'd be better to save it for later. For now, she should leave before her friends got suspicious. Sujeong would have gladly left, but her whole body was trembling, most likely from all the alcohol she'd had. The guy insisted she needed to go no matter what, but picking the right moment wasn't easy. Still, He agreed to help and give her a cue. When the moment came, she'd notice it herself. He'd count to 3, and she had to run. He started counting, but Sujeong couldn't make herself move right away. The moment he said 3, though, she bolted. While running, she kept looking back at him, but he told her to look straight ahead. It would have been fine, except why the heck was he running with her? His explanation was simple. He was heading home too, so it was the perfect chance to leave together. Sujeong worried everyone would think they'd gone off as a pair, but the guy didn't care what others thought. That was the whole point of these group dates anyway. They kept running nonstop, and honestly, it was kind of funny. Never before had anyone literally run away from a date like this. Cha Seunghyeon was having a blast. Running together like this was an unreal kind of fun for him. He loved unusual adventures and unexpected choices. Sujeong, on the other hand, hated running this fast. It was a nightmare. She was a classic homebody with 0 stamina, and not everyone found this kind of thing enjoyable. After a while, the guy stopped and said he had to go in a different direction. He promised to explain everything to the others in the group chat. Sujeong thanked him for the help and said she'd repay him somehow, but didn't understand why he was smiling so brightly. He was curious. How exactly was she going to repay him if she didn't even know how to contact him? Fair point. So Sujeong asked him to give her his phone number. The next day, Sujeong attended her lectures. The professor wrapped up the class, and finally her friends could talk and ask how yesterday's date went. One friend asked what Sujeong thought. Maybe she noticed one of the guys showing interest in her? Her friend was stunned when Sujeong said that a guy had actually asked for her number. Was he seriously trying to hit on you? The friend asked. Sujeong had thought so at first too, but later realized that wasn't the case at all. Her friend was fascinated by the love life of her cold, aloof bestie. It was honestly thrilling. When asked why he needed her number, the guy had simply said, "Just in case." And it was obvious he wasn't planning to call. It had just been a friendly exchange of numbers, but her friend wasn't satisfied with that answer. She couldn't figure out what kind of weird guy he was. He was actually great at talking to girls and handed out his number left and right to anyone who asked. But as it turned out, he gave out the wrong number, and none of the girls could ever reach him. Her friend wanted to know if Sujeong at least had his photo. Once the friend saw the photo, she recognized him immediately. His name popped up almost daily on EPTA, a popular student forum where people discussed classes, shared impressions, and gossiped. Rumor had it his family owned a shipbuilding company. They were seriously wealthy. There were tons of rumors surrounding him, and he got way too much attention from girls. He just didn't take them seriously. With guys like him, it was better to be cautious than sorry, even though back then they didn't yet know he was a player. Sujeong thought her friends were clearly dealing with boy troubles again. Her friend wanted to protect Sujeong from this player and promised she wouldn't let him hurt her. But Sujeong didn't think there was any reason to worry so much. She remembered their conversation. Cha Seunghyeon had mentioned earlier that he barely checked his messages at evenings, so he might reply late. Now the guy was checking his phone and thinking sadly that the girl hadn't texted or called him once that day. Cha Seunghyeon was surprised when someone asked where he was heading. He didn't owe anyone an explanation, but he also couldn't leave a person unanswered. Not wanting to give details, he just said he planned to go have some fun for a bit. Do Sujeong got on the bus to make it home on time. They came rarely, and she didn't want to miss the last one. Cha Seunghyeon noticed her right away and couldn't help but note how serious she looked, as always. He spotted a bracelet on her wrist that caught his interest. She wasn't even trying to hide it, almost like she was showing it off. The guy decided to move closer and lightly hooked the bracelet with his finger, pulling it toward him. Holding it with his finger, he asked if she had really decided to wear that bracelet today, too. Sujeong had no idea why he was so focused on it. It was just a normal bracelet with no real meaning. But Cha Seunghyeon realized she genuinely liked it and wanted to know why. He was sitting on a bus seat while she stood next to him, so he offered her a seat beside him. When the girl refused, Cha Seunghyeon tugged at her hand a couple of times, but she immediately pulled away. She didn't like how pushy he was being with his offer. She looked exhausted, though the guy noticed she was unusually trusting today. But though Sujeong was truly worn out, since they'd had classes all day in all their major subjects. Still, it felt amazing to finally sit down after such a hard day. The guy kept the conversation going and said her writing seemed really difficult. The girl felt uncomfortable. When he asked what Do Sujeong was working on now, she said it was a thriller and hoped he would finally leave her alone. Cha Seunghyeon was surprised. Was she really writing something like that? He actually wanted to read at least a little bit of what she'd written. She didn't like that, so she snapped back with a firm no. Not wanting to annoy her, he immediately backed off. Then some girls came up to him, surprised to run into him on this bus. They were curious where he was headed this time. Do Sujeong notice just how many female friends he had? All of them seemed genuinely happy to talk to him. He was simply one of those people who always wore a bright smile. And it was, undeniably, a very attractive one. Thinking about it, his behavior earlier started to make perfect sense to her. Nothing strange about it anymore. Even though he was quiet, it was still impossible not to notice how attractive he was, especially when he smiled. That was probably why so many girls were drawn to him and wanted to get to know him. He sat beside her, looking at her in a particular way. It probably wasn't anything special directed at her specifically, but his attention was definitely there. Every now and then, he wanted to interact with Do Sujeong somehow. So he lightly nudged her leg with his knee. Then he pretended it was an accident and tried not to take his eyes off his phone. Do Sujeong was so tired she barely realized she was almost falling asleep. She might have even dozed off a little during their conversation. Maybe she only imagined it. The bus shook a lot during their ride, so from time to time they bumped into each other, both pretending not to notice. But the girl felt the guy was trying his absolute best not to touch her, which made her jerk away on her own. As if now, she absolutely couldn't let herself brush against him, even by accident. It all felt awkward. But really, what would happen if their legs touched? What could be so embarrassing about it? The moment she thought that, the traffic lights suddenly switched to green. It almost felt like he was warning her about something, though she couldn't understand what exactly. Then the light turned bright red, and the bus stopped abruptly. Avoiding contact was impossible now, and they bumped into each other again. From the outside, it must have looked like they were a couple, chatting and gently nudging each other like two people in a romantic relationship. But the guy suddenly stood up, and Do Sujeong couldn't understand why it happened so abruptly. Cha Seunghyeon said he had to get off right there, that they could meet later, but she should make sure not to fall asleep again. By the way, Cha Seunghyeon asked if she remembered his name. The girl was, why he asked. She'd never had problems with memory. She said his name was Cha Seunghyeon, and it wasn't hard to remember since it wasn't that rare. The guy was pleased that she remembered his name. It was natural, though. She'd saved it in her contacts. The girl sitting in front of them asked if he was that Cha Seunghyeon all the girls talked about. It was strange to him that Hyunji also remembered his name. Considering how he usually acted, there was no point in taking his words seriously. Before he even stepped off the bus, Do Sujeong already got a message from him. More like a reminder. He wanted to know when she planned to repay him, since she promised after he'd kept her secret from her friends. She asked what he wanted, and he said he just wanted a simple iced coffee. When she said she'd pay with a coupon, he refused. He wanted a real coffee. When someone knew how attractive they were, they tended to be pretty picky. He didn't put in any effort. People always came to him first. Some even envied him since the guy had money and good looks. When they told him to just be honest, he knew perfectly well how cool he was. He could easily be called a real jerk. And he was probably texting some charming girl right now. It wasn't true, but the fact remained. She had never met anyone like Cha Seunghyeon before, and that was why Do Sujeong didn't know how to act around him, though texting with him somehow felt easy. Her friend noticed she was messaging someone and wondered if she was texting that stranger from the secret group date. When he ended the conversation and wished her a good evening, she was surprised. He stopped texting exactly at the moment she thought about it. Her friend wondered if he had some great intuition. That guy probably had plenty of girls. But if they ran into him at the festival, Do Sujeong had to go talk to him. She saw his classmates, the sailors, coming out in uniform to hunt for girls. And right there from their course were a few more gentlemen. Do Sujeong explained she and Cha Seunghyeon weren't close enough yet to casually talk if they ran into each other. Her friend didn't even let her finish. She grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a booth that caught her interest. The girls wanted to know what awaited them in the future, so they went to hear the fortune teller's predictions. The fortune teller said she'd recently broken up with a guy, or maybe it was long ago, but lately she'd been thinking about him again. And some time ago there was a conflict between them. The girls understood she was saying generic stuff, so they tried to nod along. The fortune teller continued, saying she'd soon get a chance to restore the relationship. But the girl didn't believe it. All that magic stuff was just a way to take people's money. The woman said Do Sujeong was very cautious, so she needed time to open her heart. But if she did, she would give herself completely. Lacking any real experience, she had no idea whether that was true or not. But she shouldn't trust everyone blindly. She needed to be careful. Her friend thought the predictions were great, but Do Sujeong asked if she seriously believed the fortune teller. Maybe the girl just wanted to believe. It made her feel more confident about the future. Well, they could wait and see. Believing wouldn't hurt. Could it be that her friend's guy texted her asking to make up? That's exactly what happened. He said he was nearby and wanted to meet. Do Sujeong told her she should hurry. The meeting might turn out well. Her friend shouldn't worry about her and should run to her guy. You can't miss your chance. Hyeri said she loved Do Sujeong a lot and would treat her to lunch tomorrow. But Sujeong didn't understand what was so special about that guy that her friend was losing her mind over him. The girl rushed to meet her ex, wondering why the hell he decided to show up now. Being a total loner, Do Sujeong couldn't understand much about it. Why did people get so emotional, crying and laughing, over some love? Everything changed after one message or a tiny update, something so small that would soon be forgotten. Yet they suffered or rejoiced over it. If love was like cherry blossoms, it was beautiful, but over too fast. Maybe it would be smarter to give up on love altogether. Although thanks to people like that, Do Sujeong could make a living. She enjoyed spending time alone, but then she was interrupted by the guy she met on the secret group date. He didn't expect to run into her at the festival. She didn't want to talk, but she had to greet him. He said maybe she didn't remember him, but he'd sat next to her at the group date. She didn't remember his name, but she recalled he was the guy who suggested getting ice cream together. He asked if she was alone. They could walk around together, but she refused, saying she was waiting for someone. He didn't believe her, thinking she just wanted to escape. He promised not to bother her. They could just grab a bite. Do Sujeong tried to explain she really was meeting someone, and they agreed to text about the location. Cha Seunghyeon immediately messaged asking what happened. She couldn't understand how he knew. Maybe he was ghost or just keeping an eye on her. When she looked around, she got another message saying she was looking the wrong way. He was on the opposite side. When she turned the other way, she spotted Cha Seunghyeon sitting at a table, drinking alcohol. She didn't know whether he appeared there by chance or was actually watching her and trying to meet her. She saw his sailor classmates hunting for girls. But why wasn't Cha Seunghyeon wearing his uniform too? He smiled, clearly seeing she was having a good time. But she didn't want him teasing her. The guy next to her said he was glad they ran into each other, and it would be a shame to part ways so soon. Cha Seunghyeon asked if she needed help, but she refused. She didn't think that was the issue. She just wondered why he wanted to help. She tried to leave, but the clingy guy kept following her, begging her to walk with him. Cha Seunghyeon wanted to help her just because, but she knew that wasn't true. No one offered help for no reason. It wasn't beneficial to them. He texted that help could be selfless if the desire was genuine, and all he wanted in return was a simple thank you. When their eyes met, he smiled sweetly again, and it looked perfect. Why did his smile work like magic on every girl, including her? It could melt even the coldest heart. Again, she read in his message that she should come to him. That way the clingy guy would leave her alone. She needed to tell the guy she had to go, someone was waiting for her, then politely say goodbye. The guy asked in surprise if she really had to meet someone right here. Sujeong confirmed, though she wasn't sure why she was doing this. Walking toward Cha Seunghyeon, she fully understood that no one in this world did anything for free. He couldn't always act without a reason, but she was curious, so she wanted to find out. It was obvious the clingy guy would finally leave her alone, and what happened next didn't matter as much. Besides, talking to Cha Seunghyeon was much easier than dealing with that persistent guy. He reached out his hand and offered her a seat beside him. If she didn't mind, he could even treat her to something. Do Sujeong easily placed her hand in his? Even she didn't expect herself to do that. If you could say it like that. It was the first time she actually felt comfortable talking to a guy, though a bit of uncertainty still lingered in her mind. Cha Seunghyeon took her hand and suggested they go somewhere with fewer people. She couldn't understand why she always gave in to his suggestions without arguing. She agreed to everything so easily and just followed him. When the girl accidentally bumped into his foot, he jokingly suggested they run away together again and hide from everyone. She could grab his hand and they would quickly leave this place, where neither of them felt comfortable or entertained. He hoped she wouldn't refuse if he asked her to take a walk with him. Even though the Sakura Cafe was really pleasant and cozy, it was packed with people who were being loud and noisy. Do Sujeong needed to stay close to Cha Seunghyeon, and right now, let herself have some real fun? Besides, he had told the guys he was expecting to meet someone. His waiting finally ended when Do Sujeong approached him. The guy immediately told his friends they were leaving and would let the two of them stay. The boys were happy that everything seemed fine with him and wished him a good time. Cha Seunghyeon also said he already paid for all their orders at the cafe, so they didn't need to worry about it. Do Sujeong decided to ask the question that had been bothering her. If he hadn't planned to meet her, then why did he lie to his friends? The guy said he just had a feeling it would happen today. That's why he said it. Besides, someone once promised to buy him coffee if they ever ran into each other again. The girl wondered how he always managed to twist things so naturally. She remembered that during their very first meeting, he acted the same way. He suddenly talked to her and helped her in his own strange manner. When he first helped Do Sujeong, he had no goal at all. He was simply bored and entertaining himself. But later, he wanted to keep talking to her, so he came up with the whole "you owe me" thing. She'd always been told to beware of people who were too friendly the first time they met, and who did many things that would later require some sort of payback. Do Sujeong asked him a strange question. Whether he, by any chance, belonged to some kind of cult. At first, he didn't realize she was being serious, but when he did, he burst out laughing. The girl grew irritated. She was being serious. To calm her down so she wouldn't worry, he told her he had never been part of anything like that. Do Sujeong couldn't understand why he pretended they were friends. Cha Seunghyeon said it helped him whenever someone asked for his phone number for no reason. Thinking about it, the girl realized she knew absolutely nothing about Cha Seunghyeon, who he was, or why he thought so highly of himself. If she wanted to talk about it, then she couldn't go home right now, unless she had a different opinion. Cha Seunghyeon knew she would want to run away again tonight, just like yesterday. So he asked her not to leave, and instead enjoy the evening with him. This guy was known as the handsome ace of the maritime department, Cha Seunghyeon. People said he rarely had free days, and back in private school, he'd been president of the Marine Council 3 years in a row. The more they talked, the more she realized they came from completely different worlds. His mind was always filled with ideas for fun, and he never worried about money. His parents were wealthy. Because of that, everything about him seemed even stranger. He was her complete opposite. So why did he suddenly want to be friends with her? And why, Cha Seunghyeon wondered, had he never noticed her before? Of course he'd never noticed her. Right after lectures, she always rushed home. Unlike him, she never stayed late at the university. Even though it wasn't easy for Do Sujeong, she felt she could at least change something in her life and see it from a new angle. It felt like the whole world suddenly became warmer, and it was unbearable. Everything looked different, unfamiliar to her. She couldn't stop thinking about why he was even interested in her. She never tried to appear open or sociable. Without hesitation, Cha Seunghyeon replied that maybe that was what intrigued him. He wanted to try something unusual and communicate with her in a way he wasn't used to. But why her? She wasn't unique. There were plenty of girls who lived the same way she did. To him, it felt like one of those stories described in romance novels, unusual relationships that stand out from the rest. Do Sujeong could hardly believe it, but it really seemed like she had fallen for this guy, even though she barely knew him. Her mysterious personality only fueled his curiosity. He wanted to learn something new about her, since he'd already told her so much about himself. He thought it was her turn to share something that might interest him. But Do Sujeong didn't even know where to start. Nothing exciting ever happened in her life. No thrillers, that's for sure. Turns out Sujeong was actually a master of romance. People said she was famous for winning romantic novel contests and taking the top prizes. How did he even know that? Did he ask her friends who came with her to that group date? But she could relax. He didn't learn all the details. Without any embarrassment, she asked if he had read what she wrote. He said he only read the beginning, so it didn't really count. He read exactly up to the moment with the kiss, when the male lead pinned the heroine against the wall, and apparently that man had been leading up to it from the very start. Do Sujeong desperately wanted him to shut his mouth and stop talking. Was he seriously this cruel? Did he enjoy teasing her? Cha Seunghyeon really was acting boldly, and that made her unbelievably angry. She was barely holding herself back from hitting him. From the very beginning, he had known everything. How was he not ashamed to dig through someone else's business? Seunghyeon saw nothing wrong with it. In fact, he thought it was something to be proud of. She didn't want him laughing, but he waited for an explanation. Why was she embarrassed? If she told him, he promised never to bring it up again. Wasn't it obvious she had no real experience? That's why she was ashamed to admit she wrote about things she had never done. That was all. So he should stop teasing her. Now that she explained everything, the guy understood. After a long walk, Sujeong's legs were tired and hurting. She couldn't walk much farther. He understood perfectly. So he suggested they stop at the first place they saw, sit down, and have something warm to drink. Sujeong felt uncomfortable. She was still embarrassed. Why was he doing this to her? Even though he promised not to bring up that topic again, he still wanted to know. Did she not like what she wrote? Wouldn't it make more sense to try those things first so she could write better afterward? Then why not try them with him? He said it casually, and she didn't have to take his advice. Sujeong insisted she didn't need advice, but the thought still hit her so hard that her inner robot short-circuited. If it wasn't just a random comment, then what was happening? What did it all mean? Since she was terrible at expressing feelings, her only strategy was pretending to be calm. She really enjoyed tonight's performance. She wished she could come here someday with someone she loved, rest her head on his shoulder, and listen to the concert. It was strange she even thought about it. Still, she played it off well, and didn't show she was a little upset. Cha Seunghyeon said she could lean on him a bit. That wouldn't be weird at all. Did she really think that out loud? And he heard it? But he said he could pretend he didn't notice anything. Was this flirting? Sujeong wondered. And did she even want to know the answer? She was facing her first serious emotional challenge in her entire existence. Was she having a crisis? A system crash? Was he too strong of an opponent for her? Sujeong truly didn't have enough experience to handle this. But why couldn't she just pretend not to notice anything? Maybe she wanted to notice. Seunghyeon interrupted her thoughts, saying she shouldn't turn around right now. She didn't know why, but he told her that behind her, on the stairs, some couple was hugging and kissing. And if she wanted more shocking news, she could take a look. He whispered that the couple was wearing school uniforms. But Sujeong thought maybe Seunghyeon had misunderstood something. He was perfectly fine and clearly saw how close their lips were. They didn't pull away from each other even for a second. With how detailed he described things, she wondered if he understood how casually his words sounded. She was sure he knew exactly where the line was, and he kept brushing against it to provoke her, just enough to get a reaction. And yet, he tried not to cross her boundaries completely, so she couldn't complain, even when it felt overly bold. They weren't actual students. There was a booth nearby where anyone could rent school uniforms. Lots of people did that when going to amusement parks. Seunghyeon asked if Sujeong liked that kind of thing. But she didn't like school uniforms, especially not for a date. She didn't like dressing up at all. She preferred seeing someone's real personality, not pretending to be someone else. To her, it all felt childish. Fun for kids, maybe, but not something she wanted to play at as an adult. She sometimes had this intuition. She could instantly sense whether someone was dangerous or kind. But Cha Seunghyeon was an entirely unknown world to her, and probably dangerous. The guy thought that with him, things might turn out differently. Wasn't she at least curious how things might change if she gave it a try? Was she really not curious at all? But then, why didn't she refuse to talk to him? And why did she spend so much of her free time with him? It was getting interesting. If she was curious, then what would he do if she agreed and decided to try it with him? Cha Seunghyeon smiled mysteriously. He hadn't thought it through yet, but he was sure he'd come up with something quickly. And when he suggested going to the amusement park with him, it caught her off guard, and she didn't know how to respond right away. At that moment, she didn't actually mean that they would go to the park together. She was just curious to see what would happen if they really did. But she wondered what could actually happen if she went with him. She hadn't suggested it, it was just curiosity, but she didn't really understand why she said it. Why was that? Girls never really understand what they say or suggest. The guy thought maybe she suddenly wanted to spend time with him. The girl thought he spoke strangely again when he said she shouldn't be happy about it, since he was hoping for her opinion. Do Sujeong was pleased that he could feel the awkwardness just like she did. In her mind, he wanted to spend time alone with her. After all, why else would he keep asking her these things? This time, everything felt more genuine. The guy calmly sipped his drink while she threatened him not to even try, saying it was all meaningless. That same day, Do Sujeong figured something out for herself. Cha Seunghyeon wanted her to guess, since she called herself a writer. If he didn't have the skill to wriggle out of situations, he'd better learn to stay quiet. Because sometimes he really said nonsense. Lately, Do Sujeong was terribly annoyed by someone who was always hanging around and constantly crossing boundaries. Although she had warned him in advance that crossing boundaries was dangerous, he promised he wouldn't do it. It was awkward to tell her only friend, Yoo Hyeri, because it would be hard to handle her looks. When she found out that Do Sujeong went to the festival with him, she had a lot of questions. The first thing was that it was hard to keep it to herself, because she wanted advice from someone. She couldn't decide on her own, since she had no experience in these matters. For the first time, she regretted not having other friends. Before, she hadn't even tried to find them because she didn't need to. But then she remembered that she actually had another friend she had forgotten about, a friend she could communicate with effectively, leaving aside personal feelings and just using knowledge. And that friend was ChatGPT. She decided to find the answer there. So she formulated her question to get a thorough response. She wanted to know what to do if someone discovered her weakness. Do Sujeong really didn't like being called a robot, but honestly, she communicated best there, because only there could she truly be understood. She mentioned that she wrote romantic novels, and sometimes she was embarrassed that she didn't want to tell anyone. Cha Seunghyeon found out on his own and now teased her about it. In situations like that, it was easy to get flustered. But the key was to remember that this person's reaction didn't reflect her worth or the value of her work. It was also important to think about how this person might use her weakness. It was curious to see if he had any guesses, given how strangely he spoke. It was a little odd that he asked if she wanted to try experiencing romance firsthand instead of just writing about it, and she wanted to understand why he asked. There could be several reasons. Maybe after reading her novels, he thought she would benefit from real experience. Or maybe it was just a casual conversation to provoke her reaction. It was clear it could be personal curiosity or just keeping the conversation going. But her reaction had been unusual. It was just a playful way to show interest, since everyone had their own ways of expressing it. But Do Sujeong felt it was too much. Why would someone, surrounded by so many people, be interested in her specifically? If he really was interested, how should she act? ChatGPT advised that such questions could be tactless. If a person doesn't respect her personal space and feelings, That kind of relationship should be reconsidered. If she thought about how to act in that situation, she could go back to him. But she already understood everything. Do Sujeong finally decided to keep her distance. She resolved to stay away from Cha Seunghyeon, following the advice. She even came up with her own personal plan to distance herself, carefully settling debts so there'd be no reason for contact. At the festival, he was the first to offer her a treat, so she couldn't buy the drink herself. She took all the advice from the ChatGPT into consideration, and now she had a chance to quietly distance herself from this guy as much as possible. Do Sujeong sent him a message, saying she wanted to buy him a coffee and asked if he had free time to meet tomorrow. Cha Seunghyeon became interested when he saw this message. He was sitting with a girl at the time and simply replied that he had seen something interesting. The guy didn't give her any answer, so the next day didn't start as she'd hoped. Then Cha Seunghyeon sent a message saying he would wait for her by the stairs on the first floor. When she came down, she immediately noticed him. Happy to see her again, that scoundrel. She decided that from today she would keep her distance. As always, he was the center of attention, and talking to everyone didn't bother him at all. Although, thinking carefully, they never really got close to each other. She suggested they go to the campus cafe since it was close to the meeting spot. The guy walked behind her, that there was never anywhere to sit there. Do Sujeong thought he was whining again, so she said it didn't matter to her where they sat. He just wanted to sit across from the author. And when she heard that, she decided it was better to stay quiet. It could also be a casual conversation to provoke her reaction again. When he would sit face to face with the girl, he handed her his headphones and asked her to put them in her bag, since they kept falling out of his pocket. Though Sujeong thought he never missed a chance to mention her writing, she agreed to put his headphones in her bag and added that she wasn't as famous as he thought. Cha Seunghyeon showed her something on his phone and asked if it could have been written by someone else. Do Sujeong was surprised he even found the site. She tried to calm down and remembered ChatGPT's advice. If he continued crossing boundaries, she could firmly say she didn't like it. So she gathered her patience and calmly asked Cha Seunghyeon why he always tried to cross her boundaries. The guy boldly replied, asking what exactly he did wrong that made her uncomfortable or crossed her boundaries. He leaned toward her and slyly asked, who said he couldn't do that? Then he pretended to think for a moment and said that you actually had to verify your age there. Do Sujeong felt her cheeks turn red. Then he pretended to think for a moment and said that you actually had to verify your age there. Do Sujeong felt her cheeks turn red. The guy didn't expect that from her, so he lost grip on his phone and it fell to the ground. Why is he doing this? He promised never to tease her again. Cha Seunghyeon wasn't planning to, but she kept asking why he couldn't be serious. His silly remarks and jokes were inappropriate and almost always offended her. The guy agreed after thinking a bit. He really had been talking nonsense. Then he noticed the phone lying next to him on the ground, hoping it was still intact and hadn't broken from the fall. Cha Seunghyeon reached out to pick up the phone, but the girl stopped him and wouldn't let him. Though Sujeong didn't want him to look at the phone, so she told him not to touch it. Cha Seunghyeon didn't understand why she wouldn't let him pick up the phone and look at it. After all, it could have been damaged from the fall, and that would have been really unfortunate. The girl didn't let go of his hand, holding it tightly and pressing it to the ground along with the phone. She looked very upset and acted strangely, constantly repeating that he shouldn't look at the phone. Then she looked up at him and asked why he was doing this, since he promised he wouldn't tease her anymore. Sujeong had to forgive him. He really went too far with his dumb jokes and hadn't thought about the consequences at all. But she reacted so sweetly to everything that he simply couldn't resist. This time, he promised he wouldn't joke like that again. Although she knew from the start that she probably shouldn't have gotten involved with Cha Seunghyeon, this time, she believed him. Maybe he had enough sense to understand her and the emotions she felt from his jokes. Why was it that when she faced his mischievous eyes, she lost the ability to speak again? It looked strange with both of them sitting on the ground, holding the phone together between them. But then the girl suddenly realized that they were holding hands and jumped away from him like a cat. She was disappointed in herself because she couldn't stick to her original plan. Seunghyun smiled and teased her, saying it was a pity he had given his answer so quickly, that it would have been better to wait a little longer. There was no need to say such things, since she wasn't the type to open up easily or talk casually with someone like him. She couldn't just sit face-to-face drinking coffee, but nothing held him back. And he replied that he meant exactly what he said. After all, he had a genuine interest in her and wanted to get to know Do Sujeong better. He was curious to find out if she realized what his real interest was, since she seemed smart to him. She had never seen someone as bold as Cha Seunghyeon. She'd never heard anything like it before and didn't even know how to react. While he waited for her response, Do Sujeong didn't know what to say, but tried to hold herself back, not showing any reaction he expected. At that moment, she just wanted to leave and never talk to him again. But he understood that perfectly, so he held her by the head, intending to stop her. He became curious where she was headed, since the cafe was on the other side. When they arrived at the cafe, there were a lot of orders, so they'd have to wait about 10 minutes. Cha Seunghyeon asked the girl what she usually did when she went out for a walk. But Do Sujeong rarely went out, and he found it odd, since he had already been outside when his friends just called him. She noted that you only rush to meet when it's friends calling, not just acquaintances. While waiting for a spot at the cafe, a girl passed by and deliberately bumped into Do Sujeong. At that moment, Cha Seunghyeon asked if she had a boyfriend, but she had already mentioned she rarely went out and didn't like crowded places. Still, she wondered why he always steered the conversation toward that topic. Was it really just about people? Indeed, that could cause some problems. He noticed that Do Sujeong's blouse sleeve had rolled up, and he immediately tried to fix it and straighten it properly. Meanwhile, he agreed with her point about crowded places, saying it's more convenient to walk when it's just the two of them. Finally, they were told the 2 Americanos they ordered earlier were ready. Do Sujeong grabbed her coffee quickly and tried to hand it to him. It felt like she was in a huge rush and planned to drink it on the way. She shoved the coffee into his hands, not understanding why he didn't want to hold it. From that moment, her debt was paid and she could leave. Cha Seunghyeon thought that was pretty harsh of her. The girl tried to leave the cafe quickly, while the guys shouted after her that they'd see each other soon. Do Sujeong always considered herself calm, so even when her father's business collapsed suddenly, she appeared composed. She cared more about how her father felt at that time. For her, nothing was terrible. Well, the house would be a bit smaller, but she didn't care. To stay independent of her parents, she tried to work and always refused money when they offered it. She was grown up enough to handle everything herself and often reminded herself to develop her talent. She wrote provocative stories, won contests, and spent her youth mostly alone. Whenever her friends invited her for a walk, she refused. People already called her a hermit, but she didn't care at all. She looked out the window at the first snow of the season, but didn't feel like going outside, even though she liked this kind of weather. But today, oddly enough, someone's random comment made her feel uneasy, even angry at times. After her actions at the cafe, she felt a little lost. She wasn't used to events in her life that disrupted her calm. So, holding her coffee tightly, she hurried home to avoid the crowds. She had decided that no one interested her and had isolated herself from the world. Maybe that's why she never thought anyone could take a special interest in her, and certainly never thought she could like someone. So, even if the meaning of this strange phrase was almost clear, she wasn't confident in herself. Why was she standing and staring instead of moving on? For the first time, she felt this incredible sensation as the spring wind wrapped around her body. Somehow, Do Sujeong couldn't stand still and started walking much faster. Realizing it, she was already running with the approaching spring. But she remembered she had decided to keep her distance, starting today. Yet why did it feel like it was pulling her back, bringing her to the same place she had started from? Holding her bag tightly, she heard her phone buzz with a new message. It was from Cha Seunghyeon, saying he'd forgotten his headphones in her bag and asking if she could bring them tomorrow. Her plan to avoid Cha Seunghyeon had failed. She had to meet him again since his thing was in her bag. Getting rid of one excuse to meet him didn't mean he wouldn't find another. Everything he did was intentional, knowing she couldn't just keep the headphones. That's why she came up with a new plan. Wait until he wasn't near the stand, leave the headphones, and run away quickly. She thought this was her only chance to escape communication with Cha Seunghyeon, which was unpleasant for her. Do Sujeong tried to flee so quickly that she didn't notice a guy ahead and bumped her nose hard against his back. She felt embarrassed for her clumsiness and tried to apologize to the guy she had accidentally hit. It looked strange because the stranger didn't react at all, and she didn't understand why. But when she looked the other way, she saw Cha Seunghyeon laughing at her failed escape and her nose getting hurt again. He laughed so hard that tears formed in his eyes. She tried to run without looking at him even once, and that's how she hurt her nose. Again, her plan to avoid Cha Seunghyeon failed. But why did everything she did to get away from him always backfire? They really had nothing connecting them. And yet he just kept laughing nonstop, even knowing it annoyed her. Maybe that was his hidden motive, teasing her again as a playful way of showing interest. Do Sujeong finally understood why Cha Seunghyeon had been acting that way. He teased her to find her weak spot. At that moment, all her doubts turned into certainty. That was his personal interest. But he was curious about what was happening between them, even though she didn't know herself. What's even happening here? Kept echoing in her mind, and she wondered how she should act around Cha Seunghyeon now. When Cha Seunghyeon reached out, Do Sujeong placed her hand on top, not understanding his actions at all. The guy smiled sweetly. He liked holding her hand, but he wanted his headphones. She had unconsciously reached out, lost in her own thoughts. Cha Seunghyeon didn't mind the close contact if it made her happy, and he really wanted it. From her hint, he realized he could also hold her hand, which he really wanted. Every time Cha Seunghyeon acted so boldly, she got flustered and didn't know what to do in that situation, especially now, when she understood the reason for his unusual behavior toward her. Still, she tried not to give in to his provocations or react to his jokes. Of course, it was unusual for Do Sujeong, since she had never encountered anything like this. At that moment, all her thoughts were filled with one feeling. It seemed like simple curiosity, but the girl decided to let the guy touch her, wanting to see what he would do next. Cha Seunghyeon didn't expect her to allow it, so he was a bit flustered, anticipating a different response. At that moment, one of his old acquaintances saw him and hurried over with a big smile to say hi. She asked what he was doing there and who the charming girl next to him was. When his acquaintance approached, Do Sujeong thought he would quickly pull his hand away and act like they were just talking, but that wasn't the case. From that hasty decision, a real game began, one that couldn't be watched anywhere. And when Cha Seunghyeon told his acquaintance that Do Sujeong was his friend, the girl was not expecting his openness and thinking he would use his usual quirky jokes again. What was happening between them, the girl couldn't know, and it seemed that Cha Seunghyeon was also bothered by it. Could it be friendship? But in some moments, it didn't seem like her. Maybe mutual attraction, cleverly hidden behind their silly jokes at each other. Cha Seunghyeon started justifying himself again, saying that she had said it first, and he only supported her, confirming her suspicions. At the same time, he held her hand tightly, noticing that she was slightly trembling. Could it be untrue? The guy wondered. And Do Sujeong wasn't actually his friend. Then why did they talk and hang out almost every day? Cha Seunghyeon decided to introduce the girls and present his acquaintance to Do Sujeong. He said Ju-hyun was his club colleague, and this was Sujeong, his new acquaintance. Ju-hyun suggested that the girl check out their booth and see what they did at the club. Ju-hyun mentioned that they had really put effort into it this year, even meeting separately on Tuesday evenings with Sin-hyun to discuss everything. Their interactions were always focused on handling important club matters. Ju-hyun had worked really hard, and it was clear she had put far more effort into the booth than he had. Ju-hyun grabbed Sang-hyun's hand, that if she was here, she absolutely had to see it. Sujeong tried to explain that she didn't have time and only came to return Cha Seunghyeon's headphones. Then Ju-hyun paused and thought maybe the two of them were having a secret meeting and she had interrupted it. Cha Seunghyeon wondered if Ju-hyun was overdoing it. Besides, he felt he might have been exaggerating with his words and actions too. But he enjoyed watching her cute reactions and simply couldn't resist the pleasure. Ju-hyun asked if she had already heard about their club. She should try the minigame, and if she won, she could get a prize. Cha Seunghyeon found it funny to watch someone else struggle. He noticed that the girl already wanted to run home but held back so as not to seem antisocial. Do Sujeong tried very hard, and he just smiled at her effort. They had only just held hands, and he didn't care about anything else. To play the minigame, Sujeong had to join their club, but Joo-hyun could overlook that if the girl wrote them a good review. Today they prepared the even-odd game. It was simple. You had to guess whether the opponent was holding an even or odd number of balls. Whoever guessed correctly would win. She couldn't see the prize. It was a secret. But last year, it had been high-quality headphones. Do Sujeong had no choice and agreed to play. Her first task was to choose an opponent from the club members. Joo-hyun quickly set up the game, and they were ready to start. But Sujeong hadn't chosen her opponent yet. She wondered why they had to play there. Cha Seunghyeon explained it was to avoid disturbing the aisle since they needed to attract people. Sitting in a special spot, they shouted to prevent people from passing by and tried to get them to play an interesting game. Do Sujeong wondered why she had to play specifically with him. Cha Seunghyeon noticed she was staring at him intently and decided she was inviting him to play. He thought it was for the better since he was the only one she knew in the club, making it easiest for her to figure him out. Sujeong thought it would be hardest to figure him out, so he should guess first. That legendary smile appeared again, and he agreed, but noted that she was too serious for such a game. Before the game, he wanted her to smile a little and relax, since the game was meant to distract people from worries and problems. When the girl held her hand out with an unknown number of balls, Cha Seunghyeon looked into her eyes and tried to guess how many were there. Was she trying to trick him on the first try? He thought a bit and chose an odd number. Again, he just played along. She agreed and decided to join the game. She had an odd number of balls, and he guessed easily. She needed a strategy to throw him off and make him lose. She had to confuse him and strike the weakest spot at the right moment when he least expected it. Now it was her turn to guess. She hesitated, and Cha Seunghyeon wanted to give her a hint. Do Sujeong didn't understand why he always seemed so calm. He thought she was taking the game too seriously, constantly hesitating and switching her guess from even to odd, or vice versa. He felt their relationship lacked trust because he had previously said he was holding an even number of balls, and she hadn't paid attention. But what trust could there be when he always expected an incredible reaction from her, teasing her and joking awkwardly? Now it was Cha Seunghyun's turn to guess again, and she had to use a new tactic because she was starting to lose. He held the balls in his hands and advised her to look closely and try to feel it. He gave her another hint about holding hands. But Do Sujeong didn't understand, sticking to her strategy. Cha Seunghyeon knew exactly how to unbalance someone with words, and he was trying it now. A spark of competition woke up in Do Sujeong, but she wasn't inexperienced either. She immediately decided to analyze everything carefully and predict Cha Seungyeon's pattern. She didn't want him to notice how nervous she was and tried to do it convincingly. For a first attempt, it seemed to go well. He noticed she was too honest. He didn't know Do Sujeong was capable of such openness. The girl wanted him to repeat it and stared into his bright blue eyes, which seemed to pierce right through her. Looking into his eyes was hard, but she tried to overcome herself and do it confidently, so as not to evoke any reaction from him. Slowly, attentively, with genuine interest, she understood that it gave him pleasure to watch her reactions, which were always different. Did he know that in these moments she felt completely under his control? Maybe that's why he acted as if he already knew how she would react. But sometimes, he didn't realize that Do Sujeong was capable of such openness. In these moments, he behaved differently, as if trying to predict her actions and apply his protective response in the form of a smile. That annoyed her greatly. She didn't want to be the only one feeling uncomfortable, even though it was normal for him. At one point, she wondered, didn't he mind that she was nervous around him? She wanted him to be slightly tense too, because it wasn't the response he expected. But no, that wasn't it. Honestly, even his heart had skipped a beat. From his expression, it was hard to tell what he really meant. His way of expressing himself always left room for multiple interpretations. Only then did Do Sujeong truly realize that these kinds of interactions had become normal for them. She said he was holding an even number of balls. But she thought that after everything they'd said to each other, he didn't feel even a hint of awkwardness. Something was definitely starting to grow between them. They continued playing, and judging by her reaction, he realized she had an odd number of balls in her hand. The girl didn't reveal how many balls she was holding, but Cha Seunghyeon insisted she open her palm. Do Sujeong asked why he wanted to see it. Did he not trust her? Do Sujeong even wondered if she could take back the fact that they had held hands? Slowly, finger by finger, he began opening her palm, warning her not to pull away. Do Sujeong noticed he was acting as calm as before. When he opened her palm, he saw a few balls tightly held there. There was no need to insistently reveal them. She could have done it herself. She felt a little uncomfortable, but stood up and tried to congratulate him on his win. It was difficult for Cha Seunghyeon, so he suggested Sujeong help him choose the main prize for them. Maybe it would be those tickets to the amusement park. The guy was happy and said in a playful manner that he didn't even know who to invite with him, clearly hinting at Do Sujeong. Do Sujeong thought the tickets were his and it was up to him to decide. She was surprised. Did he need everything spelled out? She thought it would be interesting for her. Knowing she already wanted to leave, he didn't hold her there any longer and suggested she think about what he meant. Watching him, she realized he was starting to irritate her. Telling her friend everything, she tried to explain that he meant she should go with him to the amusement park. Do Sujeong understood immediately, but didn't want to show it. Her friend was surprised, not recognizing her. Some of her ironclad resolve had vanished. Do Sujeong understood instantly, but didn't want to respond because he was so confident. Yu Hyeri advised her to let herself give in to him at least once, since it could be interesting. Right now, she was just enjoying what was happening. They had already crossed the line, so it was too late to stop now, even holding hands. Of course, he seemed too experienced, which could worry Do Sujeong, but she could end it any time she wanted. Everything should start naturally. That was the point of flirting. Do Sujeong couldn't deny it. They really were flirting. Cha Seunghyeon confirmed the same when talking with his friend. His acquaintance was surprised. Did Cha Seunghyeon really dare to flirt with that girl checking out their booth? But why the hell was he doing it if he'd said before he wasn't looking for a relationship? Still, it was expected. No one would leave him alone. The guy didn't like such talks, so he decided to go outside for some fresh air. Looking at Cha Seunghyeon, his friends didn't recognize him. After meeting Do Sujeong, he acted completely differently. Could this be the scoundrel who took Changyeon's girl? They were shocked, as he seemed to have a pretty good reputation. They didn't know all the details, but had heard the rumors. There's no smoke without fire, and girls always flocked around him. But thinking about it, it was expected. He was handsome and came from a wealthy family. Everyone saw his car, and in his place, they wouldn't push away the girls who chased him and enjoyed themselves fully. However, these guys tried to attract the attention of girls who weren't even interested in them. Honestly, he was the lucky one. Every girl dreamed of meeting him. Everyone envied Cha Seunghyeon and his carefree life. They wanted to be in his place and enjoy life the way he did. Do Sujeong decided once again to turn to the SRT chat for advice. She wanted to figure out what to do now that the guy had invited her to the amusement park. The answer surprised her. It sounded like a date, which meant they'd already come a long way. It seemed like every option had its pros and cons. There were plenty of reasons to go. Maybe it would develop their relationship or inspire her creatively. A new place plus an interesting person was the perfect combo for fresh ideas. And it really was. How had she not thought of this herself? When else would she get a chance like this? Thoughts of money and new inspiration made Do Sujeong's heart beat faster. A reason to say no was his experience. Thanks to it, he could easily steer their interaction in whatever direction suited him. The romantic atmosphere of the amusement park could accelerate things faster than she expected. It was important to stay alert and figure out whether he was serious about her or just looking for fun. Understanding whether Cha Seunghyeon was serious or not wasn't easy. But missing out on such a good opportunity would be frustrating. To be honest, she thought she'd have a lot of fun spending time with him at the amusement park. But what warning signs might there be? First, the sense of distance. If he was just looking for fun, he wouldn't let her get too close. If he was serious, he might quickly change the subject or avoid giving concrete answers. Second, intuition. Sometimes a feeling of unease is an important signal, and it's worth trusting your instincts. This flirting line was terribly complicated. She was just curious to explore this uncharted territory, so she decided to let herself give in to Cha Seunghyeon just this once, and agreed to go on a date with him. When Cha Seunghyeon saw Do Sujeong's message saying she'd go out with him, he hadn't expected her to take such a step. A thought flashed through his mind. This can't be real. He hadn't even imagined it. Though Sujeong realized her action had made him see the situation differently, she was breaking his flirting system. The day of the date came, and Do Sujeong wanted to look different than usual. This time she put on makeup and wore her best outfit. She dressed in a way that was a little uncomfortable, and even though she had just arrived, she already wanted to go home, or at least sit down for a while. She scanned for an empty spot nearby where she could warm up and rest a bit, as light snow was falling. Her gaze landed on the guy she'd bumped into recently and hit her nose on. Although she remembered him, he didn't notice her at all and couldn't recall her. After all, they had only met once. When he looked at her, she pretended not to know him and turned away. She decided to text Cha Seunghyeon and ask where he was. She had just gotten off the transport and was heading toward the park entrance. He replied that he was nearby, though Do Sujeong hadn't seen him anywhere. Cha Seunghyeon approached her from behind and said he hadn't been ahead. She should occasionally look back. He grabbed her hand and suggested she follow him. She caught up to him again, thinking he was back at his old tricks. He saw that Do Sujeong was surprised again. He acted so confidently, as if he had no doubt his little tactics would work. Could others really fall for the antics of this self-confident egoist? She remembered CPT's advice, that thanks to his experience, he could steer their interaction to his advantage. She had to be careful. The situation was becoming too tense, so she said it was too hot to hold hands right now. The guy didn't understand why she said she was hot, and that made him feel unpleasant and sad. He said he was very sorry, and that in that case it would be better if it were very cold outside during their date. Before giving in to his pressure, she decided to take control of the initiative, pointing at an advertisement and asking his opinion about it. The sign said they rented uniforms. He didn't mind. He'd never rented one before, though it sounded a bit like a lie. The sign said they rented uniforms. He didn't mind. He'd never rented one before, though it sounded a bit like a lie. For Do Sujeong, it was a rare outing, and she intended to make the most of it. Only she hadn't considered one thing. People with high standards often suffered from a flaw: being overly picky, even about something as simple as an outfit. The guy was being picky. He didn't like the pants, as some of them didn't fit well. He wanted her to quickly decide what he should wear since they'd have no time left for the park. He thought the looser pants fit better, so he tried them on again. Do Sujeong considered him a total psycho. When she chose a skirt for herself, they looked almost identical to her. Cha Seunghyeon pointed to a plaid skirt and said it looked way prettier than the other one. They ran into another couple who had also met at the club. The rest of the group was from the same trendy place. Was this info interesting? Maybe even funny? But it didn't make her laugh at all. Unlike Cha Seunghyeon, he asked her if she really didn't find it funny, but she couldn't figure out what exactly should have amused her. They all pretended they were there just for their hobby, but their real intentions were obvious. That guy didn't even pretend to care about the clothes and tried them on with pleasure. The girl repeatedly tried to draw attention to herself, trying on many items she wasn't even interested in. Thinking about it, it reminded her of their group date, and he had been the most obvious one, thought Do Sujeong. Now the guy understood what had made her laugh so much back then. It was funny not because of the group date or him, but because everything was so obvious. Do Sujeong didn't understand what was happening now. It seemed he liked observing people and analyzing their actions. Cha Seunghyeon didn't think this was bad. It helped him understand people and say what they wanted to hear. She liked it too, when he said things that seemed pleasant but could also be used to push her into discomfort. He laughed again, joking that it was just his professional habit, and then pointed out an empty fitting room. She should get in there quickly. Do Sujeong got into the fitting room and had time to plan her next moves. Maybe he was right. It really could be his professional habit. Or maybe it was just a habit she had developed, trying to mask her awkwardness in social interactions and act normal. That day, she was also watching people and had to admit to herself that she was judging them too. Some of the guys in the group were definitely overplaying it, trying to make her heart beat faster. Another one had no idea how to pull everyone into the flirtatious game. Because of that, no matter how hard they tried to act natural, it wasn't hard to figure them out. And she realized Cha Seunghyeon hadn't been lying back then. When everyone interacted, it was easy to see what each person wanted and what they expected from the group date. Only now did Do Sujeong realize that Cha Seunghyeon had also been observing people back then, though for him, unlike her, it was pure entertainment. But that didn't change the meaning. His goals and theirs were ultimately no different. In seeking new acquaintances and lively interactions with girls, they used tricks, though sometimes it came off as a bit shady. At the time, she didn't pay much attention to his smile, not realizing that this time, they were analyzing her. Do Sujeong had finally changed, feeling as if someone had uncovered a weak spot she had tried so hard to hide. The second stage of her plan included caution. How could he look her over if she kept stepping back from him? In her opinion, the skirt was slightly too big at the waist, but he thought the waistband should adjust on both sides. The waistband did adjust, but she felt it was at its limit. Cha Seunghyeon wanted to check personally and thought it could be tightened further. She was surprised. Was he serious? But if he was confident, he could, of course, try to help. He made a few adjustments, and the skirt fit perfectly. It didn't seem too big on her anymore. He noticed she was very surprised by his action. But why? She had asked for his help herself. She wasn't surprised that he helped with the skirt. She noticed that he had gone very quiet. If he was done, he could step away from her. Still, she wouldn't give the reaction he expected. Cha Seunghyeon was still standing nearby, and she wondered if he hadn't heard her request. No need to try to figure her out. Right now, she didn't want to be analyzed. He did it without pleasure, but she wasn't giving in to his probing, and figuring her out proved to be too difficult a task for him. She didn't know if it was fear or embarrassment, but his sleeve caught on something, and Cha Seunghyeon simply couldn't step away without risking the clothes. Could all of this really be happening just because of a feeling they could call excitement? So, what do I really think about this manhwa? I Want to Be Fooled is one of those stories that reminds us how addictive emotional games can be. Both characters know they shouldn't fall, but they keep getting pulled back in anyway. Cha Seunghyeon is charming, dangerous, and way too good at blurring the line between truth and lies. And Do Sujeong? She's strong, stubborn, and completely aware of the risks, yet she still lets herself get swept into this intoxicating push and pull. It's not a simple love story. It's a psychological game where trust is fragile, feelings get twisted, and neither side wants to be the first to fall. But that's exactly what makes it so captivating. You can't help but wonder whether this is real love or just a beautiful illusion they both want to believe in. Thank you so much for coming back and watching this recap all the way to the end. It truly means a lot. Let me know what you think about their relationship. Is it love, manipulation, or something in between? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Your support helps the channel grow so much and keeps me motivated to bring you more amazing stories. And trust me, there are still so many exciting romances ahead. See you in the next one.